What I was talking about earlier about the Nephilim. Now, where they have the heroes of old, the Nephilim, where it says, and where Moses was talking about the Nephilim and the heroes of old. So the sons of God came down and saw the daughters of men were fair, and took wives of them all they beheld, or all they chose, and they had children, and these men were men of renown, the heroes of old. Now that seems to match up to a lot of the polytheistic religions and the heroes like Perseus and Hercules and different Nordic religions, whatnot. They're always demigods. They're always sons of what they called gods. So it makes sense, just like the flood with Gilgamesh, that this is history. This stuff probably happened, and I mean, even in an objective. I mean, I'm sure that it happened, but even objectively, and just with objective logical reason, makes sense since every part of the world has these stories of these people, and Moses talked of them. Of course, in the Bible, it tells what's the truth about it, and you can say that's my opinion, but I know otherwise. I'm not going to show that pearl to you, though. And they, Moses he knew that they were the fallen angels, the fallen ones. That's what Nephilim means, the fallen ones. So they were basically demons, and they came down and they had sex with women and had children, and then these children were kind of real powerful men and women, and they became great heroes of men of renown that we still hear about today. And I think that's what Moses was talking about. And the flood with Gilgamesh. I mean, if you research, every culture all around the world, every ancient culture has a flood story where there was one family that escaped. And there's different, you play the rumor game, okay? You play the rumor game. You say one thing, and then it passes on, 50 times. The story changes in a very short time. People add things, even if you tell them not to. You just tell them the story, and then it goes around. You do a little study. You find out the story changes over time. Certain elements remain the same. So what I believe happened is it happened as it says in the Bible, and God stuck with Moses and his not Moses, Noah. Of course, all the children were of Noah. But he kept with certain people who were faithful and righteous and believed regardless. Like Abraham, there was barely anybody in the world else who knew of Yahweh. There was Melchizedek and a few others, but there was very few others. There was a lot of polytheism and a lot of atheism. I don't know if there was much atheism. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. But he heard the voice of God, and he followed it. And he got rid of all, he understood that it was God, and he was the sole person he knew besides, Melchizedek came to him once. And he believed with all his life. Now, I guess back then, though, it's true that the Egyptians knew of Yahweh also back then, because when he lied to he didn't exactly lie. He told him that Sarah was his sister, which was kind of true. It was his stepsister. His father married a woman who had her as a daughter already, so there wasn't any incest there. It was his stepsister, and so he told him that, and then they tried to take her to wife, and God cursed them, and they were like, what have you done? God's cursing us. So, I mean, there were other people, but, Abraham didn't have a whole bunch of people to reinforce his belief. you know. And so, you know, God went with people like that who stand against their entire surroundings if they need to, in obedience and in love and faith in what they know of the Lord, regardless of what everyone else is saying. It's who God goes with. And and he kept the story of the truth with them. And what happened was, the rest of the people, they knew of the flood and of Noah. And it just, the rumor game, it just changed. The story changed somewhat. And they say the Gilgamesh story was written 11,000 BC or something. I can't remember exactly. But there's only one person who translated it, and it's one guy, and it's like he's the only guy in the world who's able to translate it. He's the only one who understood it. Or I think it was the Gilgamesh. It was a certain type of cuneiform, and nobody else understood it. Now, how did he know? How can there only be one person who understands or can translate cuneiform, and you're going to trust them that it's accurate? And that's one thing that I found out fairly recently. But before that, reading the Gilgamesh, it seemed to me like a mix of Isaac and Jacob. Or no, not Isaac and Jacob. Isaac and Esau. Jacob and Esau, sorry. Jacob and Esau, because Gilgamesh had that twin brother who he ended up killing, who was real hairy. And a mix of, Noah and Cain and Abel. Because Cain and Abel and Jacob and Esau, there's the hairy brother who lives out in the wild, and Gilgamesh ends up killing him. See? Seems like a mix of Jacob and Esau and Cain and Abel. And then the Noah story. So I think they just threw together a bunch of stories. But, they say it was translated from tablets real old. But, I don't trust them. I trust what I know. And, but I'm willing to research it. And it's funny because, a lot of the cities where they find, the different myths of the I can't remember, the Mesopotamians, I think, where they have El and Tiamat and everything, are probably, they assume that because they find stuff that's older than, 3,000, older than 2000 BC, they assume that, that doesn't match up with what it says in the Bible about the flood. The flood happened around 2000 BC. Because if you look at it, if you do the dates, Moses was still around. No, not Moses, jeez. Noah was still around. He was still alive when Abraham was alive. I think he might have been Melchizedek, actually. I'm not certain. But, seems to me that Melchizedek was Noah. And if you... Maybe not, though. I don't know. I don't know why they give him a different name. But it called him the, Melchizedek means king of righteousness. And of Salem, which is peace. King of peace, also. King of righteousness, king of peace. And, But if you look at it, why would you assume that because there was a flood that abated, all the cities that were there would not have archaeological evidence still? The cities from pre-flood. A lot of this, the cities that are pre-flood would still have, you'd still be able to dig them up and look at them. Just because there was a flood doesn't mean they disappeared. The flood, killed everything on earth, except Noah and his family and the animals. But it subsided, and then, of course, the cities would still be there. And that's probably where a lot of stuff comes from. So that kind of negates their idea that anything found before 3000 BC negates the truth of the Bible and the timeline.